Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast on the Move with Axon Tire. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Axon Tire. I have the lovely Paige Marsh back here with us today. So how you doing, Paige?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thanks for having us, Casey.
That's a good time. So you're stuck in the awful, just warmth of Georgia here, right?
I am. I wouldn't quite say it's awful though. We've had a couple 90-degree days, but
Yeah.
the humidity makes it feel a lot warmer. But I'm not complaining about the sunshine.
Yeah, it's sunshine is nice for a change, that is for sure.
Yep.
So how are things back in your neck of the woods now? I know it's been cold and wet and everything else. You had a little shot of some warm, dry weather come through. What's the how the planner's rolling out your way right now?
Oh yeah, I think back home in Des Moines, and then my family farms up in Northeast Iowa,
Okay.
Little town called Waverly. We farm about 5,000 acres, and they went through a wet spell. We've talked about it before on here, but it was really rainy for a good 2 weeks, like first couple of weeks of May and then last couple of weeks of April. But now I think they're just getting crops in the ground, and I think they just finished up like 2 days ago. So their crops are all on the ground. I know some farmers are still trying to get it in the ground, but they're rolling, I think. So that's good.
Right on. Well, who do we have with us this week? Or I guess this month for the On the Move with Axon Tire.
Yep. So we have our new client advisor, Derek Griggs, and he covers what we call our Plains territory of the United States. And it is a lot of states. So if you want to know any specifics, I will let you reach out to him individually, but he covers the Plains territory, and we're happy to have him with us. And then we also have sales manager, Mr. Roy Diener.
Right on. Fellas, how you doing today?
Good, Casey. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing real good.
Doing good, Casey. It's good
Roy,
to be with you again.
Yeah, good you, man. It's been a little bit. How you been?
Yeah, well, I'm down here in the south, and it's warm, but yeah, we're hanging in there.
You were saying it was 112 degrees the other day?
Yeah. So
that's plenty hot.
Yep.
That's hot enough.
Yep. And we're lacking in some rain, but hey, we'll take what we can get.
I hear you on that part. That's for sure. Well, Derek, we'll start with you. Let's talk about where you cover, area you cover, what you're seeing out there, how things going right now for you.
Things are going good. So I cover the Plains region, which is Kansas, Missouri, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota. I was just up in South Dakota a few weeks ago, and they've kind of been hammered with a lot of rain, and the temperatures at that time was still too cold to get out and get it. Everybody was kind of waiting to get out and start planting. I think they needed to get the ground temperature up to around 50 degrees or so. And I think they finally got there and should be out hammered away. Missouri, I was out covering the kind of northwestern part last week, and everybody was out going gangbusters, trying to get everything in the ground. We've had a lot of rain the past week, and I think we're probably going to get a lot more rain over the next week. So everything I'm hearing is good. I just got back from Colorado, and kind of a little different out there as far as I went and kind of covered the south and west side of starting in Denver down to Pueblo out west, and not a whole lot going on out there. A lot of the equipment that I saw is really just smaller ag. They do a lot of like hay and alfalfa in the areas that I was out in. But everyone's really optimistic, and obviously being new, just kind of going out and seeing what everybody's doing and kind of learn about their business and things like that. So it's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's a lot of optimism out there right now for sure, but there's also a lot of worry out there. Roy, when you're being a sales manager and seeing what's going on right now, there's all these different aspects that are coming into play, whether it's shortages, whether it's price increases, whether it's, you run down the list and there's a million things that are in your way. I guess as you take a look at what's going on, Roy, what are some of the things that stand out to you right now?
Yeah, Casey, it's becoming very surreal to us as the time frames of stuff. We're not used to it. In the industry, we're quite used to ordering something and getting it within a certain time frame. And as you would know, in the machinery side, there's things that are pushing certain machines back. Maybe not every part, maybe not every machine, but there's definitely things that are taking longer. What we're facing is longer lead times for stuff, and it just brings in a new way of thinking, I should say, is to making sure we can forecast. That's been a big part of our year, is understanding where our customers want to go and what their goal is. And we understand that machines might not be available and they might not even know when they're going to get the machines. But if we know what you're planning to do with the machine once you get it, we can kind of plan roughly and make sure we have the product at our warehouse available to you when the need arises. But it's just becoming a big thing that we've never really thought of in this industry. We've always just made sure we had the stuff there around the time frame. Spring time comes, you want to make sure you have what they need to get the crop in the ground, and then fall time comes, you got to make sure they have what the implement dealer and the farmer needs for taking the crop back out. But now you're having to plan quite a ways out just to make sure that you do have the stuff. It just takes a lot more thought process, and we appreciate in the implement dealer side for sure any input that we can get that will help us in that forecasting. It just helps immensely during these times.
Yep. So Derek, when you're out traveling around over this course of time that you've been out and around, kind of getting introduced to the your new clients that you're working with, what are they expressing to you? I mean, are you hearing some, hey, what are lead times looking like on your end? I mean, what are you hearing from those guys as far as stuff that they're worried about and stuff that's on top of mind for them right now?
I think the biggest thing I've been hearing is I'll use sprayer float, like sprayers, for example. A lot of people are saying, I think John Deere's June 1st is when they're going to kind of start doing their allocations as far as what everybody's going to get. And a couple people have told me that they basically got everything that they're going to sell is already committed. They're just waiting to find out what they're going to be able to get. And some people are saying, I really don't have any equipment to sell once they open that up and give them their allocations. I know when I was up in South Dakota, it was very interesting to see how much more equipment they had up there versus northern Missouri or even Colorado. It was like night and day, just seeing how much equipment they had in yards versus what you see down here kind of in the Midwest. But they're all optimistic, but I think a lot of them are planning on, some were saying almost a year out on certain machines.
Yeah. So Roy, when you're looking at some stuff now, like we had this big jump in diesel fuel prices, right? So you had a huge increase. You went from, I think about $1 to $1.50 in about a week, kind of seems like. Are you seeing some logistical issues that you're starting to run into out of factories getting stuff here, or are you seeing some possibility of some more price increases, those kind of things, fuel surcharges like that, that are going to start affecting how you guys do business?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. We actually had one of our suppliers just announced that they're going to increase their surcharge, which is just, I guess, a fancier way of saying, our fuel prices are going up. We need to charge more for it. And then, yeah, it's playing a big part in making sure the product gets there. The fuel prices are on the rise. Definitely for the vendor side of it, it's playing a huge part in when they get the stuff there to you and what the end result and end cost is. That's also something else that we've had to deal with a bit is, and we get it, but the vendors are unable to secure some pricing due to the fact that it when it gets to you is when they price it because of the time frame. And a lot of that has to do with some of the fuel cost, I imagine, and raw product, of course, will play into that. But it will it'll raise the price. Definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing how much it's jumped. I've got Valley Transportation. That's part of the podcast here. I'm gonna have them on Monday to kind of talk about that very thing, because that's they live, eat, sleep, and die that every day. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're talking about from that perspective. Derek, did you have anybody out when you're traveling around, especially from an end user standpoint? A lot of guys, purchase their diesel fuel, and those kind of needs, they pre-purchase that stuff moving forward. But there were a lot of folks this year that didn't do that because of a million different reasons, availability, so on and so forth, if they were going to be able to get it and all these kind of things. So I guess as you had that conversation with anyone, did the input, just the price of input costs, fuels, whatever it is, did that come up with any of your clients as you talked to them this week?
Yeah, I've had several people mention obviously the rising costs in fuel, diesel and things like that are obviously having an impact on things. But it's just kind of the nature of the beast. And I think all the farmers are happy, obviously, with the pricing on commodities right now to kind of help out with a little bit of the sting with that.
Yeah. So a little technical stuff now. So whoever wants to answer this question, they can. So this is one of those things, my dad, when I was growing up, would always say, air your tires up nice and tight. When fuel prices are expensive, you get better fuel mileage that way, and those kind of things. That didn't always work in farming. You can't just, put 50 pounds of pressure inside of a tractor tire and hope it does what it's supposed to. But you start looking at a bunch of different stuff. You start looking at ballasting, you start looking at tire pressure, you start looking at the kind of tire you have. What are you doing with that tire? Those kind of things. Trying to be as efficient as you can with the fuel costs the way they are. How are you guys going about talking to your customer about that right now?
Yeah, actually, we've raised this quite a few times with customers, especially during, this time of year. There's guys taking planters from field to field, and so on the road, you of course would love your air pressure to be up, but when you get in the field, you might want it lower. But what has actually helped in the industry is nowadays you get the VF and IF technology. The tire is actually made to run on less air pressure, so it doesn't affect it as much as it used to in the previous times,
right?
Before that technology came out. But I will say is air pressure is still a very key thing, and then weighing out the machine. That'll help in a lot of fuel, and make sure it's properly weighed front to back, so that you're carrying it even across that machine and got the right weight on where it needs to be, and then setting your air pressure. And we're a phone call away. If anybody out there has issues, be glad to, one of our technical advisors would be very glad to make sure your machine, if you can give us a rough estimate of what the weight is, we can help you set your air pressures, because that is key to making sure you get the best fuel. But at some point, you got to be also worried about what your crop comes out at. If you're in an area where compaction matters, having a lot of air pressure could you could lose yield. And so there's a very fine point at somewhere where you got to worry about whether you're getting the best yield, and then make sure you're getting the best fuel mileage. So it's a bit of a balancing act, is what I would say.
Yep. So planting
Also,
season. Go ahead, Paige.
Sorry, Casey. We do have a couple of great resources on our website regarding tire pressure. So if you can't, for some crazy reason, get a hold of a client advisor, then you can always go to our website, which, axontire.com. But we do have a couple of good articles and then a couple of tire talk videos that the guys do on tire pressure. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. There's a lot of good resources on your website. I check it out a lot just because I'm an idiot when it comes to tires. So
that's why we have the website. That's why we're here.
And that's the thing, Casey, honestly, I wouldn't say you're an idiot by any means, but that's what we're here for. We're the tire technology and the knowledge. You guys are there, more about the machine. I couldn't begin to tell you flow rates out of any of the hydraulics or the horsepower, what it matters and what advance. That's not me. That's your business. We're here to help you guys sell the tires. And keep that move more iron. That's our slogan, and that's what we're here to do, is help you guys along. So
yeah, and we appreciate that. You guys do a good job of it. question I have for you now is, okay, playing season's wrapping up. You know, we're not wrapping up, but halfway to 3/4 of the way through, depending on where you're at. That rolls right into spray season. Sprayer floats are always a big part, this early part of the spraying season. How do you, because I don't know that there's anyone that really understands the rhyme or the reason when it comes to float tires, what they have. You know, like most sprayers might run on a 380 or a 320 or something like that up and down the rows, but then they look at their floats, they put a 710 on, or a 480 or a 520 or something like that. It's just a bigger tire than what they have when they normally go up and down the row anyway. You know, I put a client of mine that I put 800 metrics on a floater on a 616R, and I was like, man, those tires are going to be ridiculously big for what's going on. And actually aesthetically, it looks pretty nice, you know, kind of neat. But how do you go about finding out which float tire is the best?
Yeah, and again, this is a bit like the air pressure conversation. It goes by what the environment that you're putting the sprayer through. If you got dirt that you're worried about sinking into a lot, that's where guys will try and put, some of those bigger, wider ones on. If you're in a dry land and you're fighting whether you should even take the time to put a float on because it's so dry, a lot of guys will run the 480 because it's not considered a float, but it is a wider enough tire that it can carry that machine weight. The biggest thing is to make sure that your sprayer has got the correct tires on it when they do put floats on. There is some out there that I will say that load rating isn't right, so then you end up with high pressure needed in the tire, which causes a lot of compaction in a field. Just understand what you're putting on the machine and understand air pressures, because compaction is a big thing in some areas, and it could affect where you're riding with that sprayer. Just because you have a wider tire, if it's not set right, it might not be doing what you're thinking it should be doing.
Yeah.
But it depends what you're trying to do with it. As far as floats, and a lot of guys use them, there's a variety of floats too now, just as many, almost as many variety of skinny tires, row crop tires, I'd rather call them. There's a variety of floats. So, reach out and we could discuss your customer could be going through and his specific need and what he's planting and what he's trying to do. And then we can come up with a float. And nowadays, sometimes it's kind of depends what's available too, because that's been a factor in a lot of things.
Yep. I was working with Jim the other day on finding these floats I was just talking to you about, and tires, no rims and no tires. And then we finally found tires and rims at the same place. And I said, I'll take them. I don't, tell me what size they are. I'll just take those because that was what was available. And, thank God they were available, because that was it. That was my choice, and I think that we're running across that a lot, so, Derek, when you're talking with your customers up there and you're talking about that very thing, like your choice is to, here's your choice. How are you handling that when you're talking with your customers?
Obviously just most of them are aware of the supply chain issues. Sure. And South Dakota is a prime example of people up there love LSWs, and obviously they're they're hard to find. And having Jim, as you know, is a resource internally when I'm on the road. He's really good about helping try and locate something or come up with a solution.
Yep.
So they're very understanding. I think at first they probably weren't, their customers weren't, but I think now that everyone's starting to see more supply chain issues, they're very understanding of it, and a lot of them are willing to wait a little while to get product in, so so far it's been good. But.
Yep. Yeah, it's the supply chain thing is a mess. They have 1 week they've got it, next week they out of it, and it's a whole different problem that you got to worry about on top of that. So yeah,
and that's the thing. If we do have them, we usually have to tell the customer, if you want them, lock them up now because they might not be here tomorrow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, Paige, this is my favorite part of the Axon podcast we do is what's the free giveaway going to be this month?
Yeah, this one's going to be a good one. This is kind of a product that you don't think you need it until you have it, and then you can't live without it. But it is a Firestone flashlight.
Look out.
Yeah, just put it in your car, and then you have it all the time. So if you want a free Firestone flashlight, it's going to be first and last name and then your address, and just email that information to marketing@axontire.com, and we will get one sent out to you.
That is awesome. I have more flashlights that don't work in my house than do. So I'm gonna have to send off and get a new flashlight.
You're gonna have to.
Right on. Well, final thoughts, Roy or Derek. You guys have any final thoughts we want to talk about before we throw this back to the podcast gods out there on the internet?
Not that I can think of. Appreciate you having me on for the first time, and it's been fun.
Won't be the last, Derek.
No, and I'd like to say, Casey, this has always been a good thing, and we look forward to the Moving Iron show, Summit show down. But honestly, anybody out there listening, it is a good time to collaborate with others and see what is out there available. We're going to be there. Feel free to sign up, and we'll make sure we come by and visit. We'll be glad to talk with you. But yeah, any of the reps that are out there, and if you need any information on this show or anything that's going on, we'd be glad to help you out. But also go to the website, axontire.com. It's very informal. And that's about all I got for final thoughts.
Right on. That's good. All right, Paige, folks want to reach out to Axon. What's the best way to do that?
Yep, it's going to be sales@axontire.com.
Right on. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate Axon Tire, everything they're doing for the Moving Iron podcast. And thanks for you guys being on the podcast.
Thanks for having
Casey.
me.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you find the latest editions of the Moving Iron podcast. Also go to MovingIronLLC.com for everything Moving Iron related and all the information for the Moving Iron Summit coming up in Nashville, Tennessee, September 6th, 7th, and 8th. You'll see everybody that's on this podcast. They're all going to be there. So you can meet them in person, or you can check out the YouTube channel and you'll see them there too. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Paige, Roy, and Derek. It's going to be fine, folks. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century.